Number 9. Having a birthmark. You've got that little splash of reddish-brown on your arm, or maybe a tiny, oddly shaped mole near your neck. Today, it's a beauty mark, or a unique physical characteristic. You might even think it's charming. But back in the glorious days of witch hunts, that charming little spot wasn't a testament to your individuality. It was a screaming neon sign pointing directly to your allegiance with the Dark Lord himself. Welcome to the wonderful world of the Devil's Mark, or Witch's Mark. Seriously, the criteria for being marked by the devil were about as scientific as a toddler's drawing. Any mole, wart, scar, or birthmark that was considered unusual, which, let's be honest, means almost any deviation from perfectly smooth, unblemished skin, could be interpreted as the devil's personal signature, a branding iron of evil. It was often said these marks were where familiar spirits, like imps or demonic cats, would suckle their witchy sustenance, leaving behind a numb spot. And you know what else is numb? A lot of random spots on your body if you poke them hard enough with a needle, which, disturbingly, was a common test. So if you happen to have a birthmark that vaguely resembles a small rodent or a misplaced piece of lint, congratulations, you'd be spending your medieval afternoon trying to explain away a perfectly natural epidermal peculiarity as not being a satanic nipple. Your skin wasn't just skin, it was a potential criminal record. Number 8. Being old and alone. Picture this. You've lived a long life. Perhaps you're a widow, or you simply never married. You've accumulated a lifetime of wisdom, a few wrinkles, and maybe a cat or 3. In modern times, you're an elder, perhaps a cherished grandmother figure, or just someone enjoying their golden years in peace. But turn back the clock to the Middle Ages, and your quiet solitude just transformed into a glaring red flag in the eyes of a suspicious populace. Being old, female, and living alone was practically a wizarding degree in a society obsessed with conformity and social order. Why? Well, without a husband or a direct male relative to control them, older women living independently were viewed with profound suspicion. They didn't fit neatly into the patriarchal structure. Their knowledge, often gained through years of practical experience in midwifery, herbal remedies, or simply navigating a harsh world, could easily be twisted into secret powers, or unholy wisdom. The fact that they might talk to their cats, which, let's be honest, we all do, was irrefutable proof of a familiar spirit. And if anything bad happened in the village, a cow got sick, a child caught a fever, the bread didn't rise, who better to blame than the isolated old woman who wasn't part of the accepted social fabric? Her very existence outside the norm made her an easy target, a convenient scapegoat for any misfortune. So, if your retirement plans involve a cozy cottage and a lifetime supply of knitting, be grateful you won't be accused of knitting hexes into your scarves. Basically, a tranquil old age was seen as a conspiracy. Number 7. Having a garden. You enjoy spending your weekends tending to your tomatoes, nurturing some herbs, maybe a few pretty flowers. You find it therapeutic, a connection to nature, and let's be honest, a great way to avoid grocery store prices. In our modern world, you're a proud gardener, maybe even a little trendy. Flashback to the Middle Ages, however, and your green thumb just became incredibly incriminating. Your peaceful patch of petunias and parsley might as well have been a bubbling cauldron of dark magic. See, knowledge of plants, especially their medicinal or poisonous properties, was a double-edged sword in an uneducated society. While some villagers might come to you for a poultice for a sore throat, if that poultice didn't work, or worse, made things worse, your herbal expertise could quickly be relabeled as sorcery. The fact that you knew which plants could induce sleep, or ease pain, or even cause an unfortunate stomach upset was terrifying to those who didn't understand natural remedies. And if your garden was too successful, or grew too quickly, or produced too many strangely shaped gourds, clearly you were receiving unnatural aid. Furthermore, many traditional folk remedies or rituals involved specific herbs or plants, blurring the line between harmless tradition and alleged witchcraft. So, if your hobby involves getting dirt under your fingernails, be glad that today, the only thing you're likely to be accused of is having an overly aggressive zucchini plant. Basically, your botanical brilliance was seen as borderline blasphemy. Number 6. Having a pet, especially a cat. You love your furry companion. Maybe it's a loyal dog, a sassy parrot, or most likely a majestically indifferent cat. Today, they're family, emotional support animals, or simply adorable little dictators. But back in the Middle Ages, especially if that companion was a cat, particularly a black one, your beloved pet wasn't just a friend. It was a demonic assistant, a familiar spirit sent directly from the underworld to aid in your wicked deeds. Your cozy cuddle buddy just became Exhibit A in a witch trial. The association of cats, particularly black cats, with witchcraft dates back centuries, solidified during the witch hysteria of the medieval and early modern periods. Cats were nocturnal, mysterious, and independent, traits that, to a terrified and superstitious populace, screamed evil accomplice. They were believed to be shape-shifting demons, spies for the devil, or vessels for witches' spirits. If you were an old woman living alone, strike one, see above, and you happened to have a cat, it was practically an open and shut case. The cat was clearly your familiar, whispering dark secrets and helping you brew evil potions. Dogs were somewhat less maligned, but any unusually intelligent or devoted animal could still raise eyebrows. So, next time your cat judges you from across the room, just be grateful it's only judging your outfit and not your imminent fate. Basically, your pet wasn't just a pet, it was a co-conspirator. Number 5. Being unusually beautiful or ugly. Okay, this one is a bit of a lose-lose, isn't it? If you were exceptionally striking with a face that could launch 1,000 ships, or at least inspire a dozen village gossips, you were clearly using unholy enchantments to bewitch men. Too beautiful? Must be a succubus or employing love spells. But then, if you were considered unusually plain, or bore any physical deformities, scars, or even just an unconventional appearance, well, that too was a mark of your dealings with the devil. Perhaps you were cursed by him, or deformed during a dark ritual, or simply so hideous that only a pact with evil could explain your existence. The medieval mindset didn't have much room for nuance in human aesthetics, especially when superstition ran rampant. Beauty could be seen as an unfair advantage, one only obtainable through dark means, especially if it disrupted the social order or caused jealousy. Conversely, any perceived ugliness or physical imperfection was often interpreted as a visible sign of inner depravity or a divine curse, frequently linked to demonic influence. It was a no-win scenario for anyone who stood out from the crowd. So, whether you graced the village with your stunning visage or terrified it with your unique charm, you were probably in trouble. Basically, your face wasn't just your face. It was a damning piece of evidence. Number 4. Having unusual knowledge, especially medical. Imagine you've spent years quietly observing, learning about local plants, understanding the progression of illnesses, or perhaps you just happen to be really good at predicting the weather based on cloud formations. You're the village elder who knows how to mend a broken bone, sort of, or concoct a soothing tea for a cough. Today, you're an invaluable local resource, perhaps a respected amateur historian, or a budding botanist. In the Middle Ages, however, your practical wisdom just painted a giant target on your back. Any knowledge that wasn't sanctioned by the church or easily understood by the common person was immediately suspicious. This was especially true for medical knowledge. Pre-scientific medicine was a guessing game at best, and the few successful remedies were often passed down through generations or discovered by trial and error. If you consistently cured ailments that stumped everyone else, or if your remedies involved obscure ingredients or strange rituals, which many folk remedies did, you weren't a healer. You were a witch. Midwives, in particular, were often targeted. They possessed intimate knowledge of the female body, birth, and death, powerful, mysterious processes that could easily be attributed to dark forces if things went wrong. If a baby died or a mother had complications, the midwife was the first and often only suspect. So, if you're the kind of person who always knows a neat trick or a specific remedy, be thankful your smarts are now appreciated, not demonized. Basically, your intelligence wasn't a gift, it was a threat. Number 3. Having bad luck, or causing others to have it. You spilled coffee on your new shirt. Your internet cut out right before a big meeting. Your favorite sports team lost, again. Today, these are just minor annoyances, the mundane cruelties of a chaotic universe. But in the Middle Ages, if you or someone around you had a persistent string of misfortunes, It wasn't just bad luck. It was proof positive of dark, supernatural interference. And if you happened to be the person consistently near these unfortunate events, you weren't just unlucky. You were likely the cause of everyone else's misery. Think about it. In a time when crop failures meant starvation and disease outbreaks decimated entire villages, people desperately sought explanations beyond the whims of nature. If your cow stopped giving milk, or your neighbor's child fell ill, or a storm ruined the harvest, who was easier to blame than the unlucky person who had a weird twitch or lived on the outskirts of town? This idea of maleficium, or doing evil through witchcraft, was deeply ingrained. If you yourself seemed to attract misfortune, it could be twisted into evidence that you were engaging in self-destructive dark arts, or even worse, that your very presence was cursed and contagious. So, if you're prone to minor mishaps or have a knack for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, thank your lucky stars that modern society blames faulty wiring or cosmic coincidence, not your shadowy pact with misfortune. Basically, your bad day was someone else's witch trial material. Number 2. Refusing to beg. You're a person of pride. Perhaps you've fallen on hard times, but you refuse to stoop to begging. You maintain your dignity, attempt to find honest work, and strive for self-sufficiency. In our contemporary world, this is seen as admirable, a sign of resilience and character. But transport that admirable stoicism back to the poverty-stricken, deeply stratified society of the Middle Ages, and your refusal to accept charity, especially from the wealthy or powerful, could be seen as an act of defiance, and therefore an act of witchcraft. This one sounds particularly twisted, right? But here's the grim logic. If you were poor and didn't beg, you were apparently getting your sustenance from somewhere else. And in a world where legitimate sources of aid were scarce, that somewhere else was often assumed to be the devil. If you could somehow survive without relying on the established social order or the charity of the church and nobility, you must be tapping into unholy powers. It undermined the very system of feudalism and Christian charity. Your independence was not a virtue. It was a suspicious anomaly. And if you had the audacity to refuse a handout from a person of status, that was considered an affront, something only a truly evil or bewitched individual would do. Your self-respect was misinterpreted as evidence of a hidden, nefarious resource. So, if you've ever proudly declared, "I don't need your help," be very glad you're not making that statement to a medieval lord. Basically, your pride was proof of a pact. Number 1. Just being an independent woman. You have your own thoughts, your own opinions, perhaps your own property, or even a craft or trade that makes you self-sufficient. You make your own decisions, speak your mind, and generally live life on your own terms. Today, you are simply a woman. In the Middle Ages, however, your autonomy was terrifying. Your independence, particularly if unmarried or widowed, was perhaps the single greatest red flag for accusations of witchcraft. This is the big one, the overarching theme that encompasses so many other signs. Medieval society was rigidly patriarchal. Women were expected to be subservient, to be defined by their relationships to men, fathers, husbands, brothers. A woman who existed outside these predefined roles, who showed too much intelligence, too much strength, too much financial independence, or too much sexual autonomy, was a direct threat to the established order. Her mere existence challenged male authority and societal norms. If she ran her own business successfully, it must be because of a spell. If she didn't conform to community expectations, she was clearly an outcast plotting dark deeds. If she was outspoken, she was bold and unwomanly, traits often associated with demonic possession or alliance. A woman who dared to think for herself, to heal others outside the purview of male doctors, or to live without male supervision, was, by default, seen as operating under a different, unholy authority. It was easier to label her a witch than to acknowledge her innate strength and capability. So if you're a woman who prides herself on her independence, remember that just existing freely might have been enough to land you in deep, medieval trouble. Basically, your freedom was seen as a felony. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.